Howdy, Possum Patty here, and today we're going on an adventure, a bit of an eerie journey to the cemetery to do some grave rubbings. And I'm going to use these grave rubbings in my Halloween Fall Memory Keeper Junk Journal. So come on along. First, let's get some supplies together. And here's my kit to do some gravestone rubbings. You want paper that's thin, so I have some large sheets of newsprint, some very thin brown craft paper, some Japanese rice paper, and a few sheets of tracing paper. I have some paper tape that's to hold the paper onto the gravestone, some scissors to cut the paper. I have a very large soft lead pencil. This is a Kimberly 9XXB. I have a pack of charcoal and some gloves to wear while working with the charcoal, some very fat crayons, and two special crayons. And these are especially made to do gravestone rubbings. I bought these at the bookstore at the Pennsylvania Renaissance Fair, I don't know, 25 years ago, and never used them. Well, I think I did a texture rubbing with them once, but never used them on gravestones. So there's my kit. After you gather up your supplies, there's three things I want you to remember before you go and do some gravestone rubbings. There are laws that allow public admission into cemeteries, but be sure to get permission to do the rubbings. Always be very respectful when you're in the cemetery. And most importantly of all, be careful not to damage the headstones. Some of these headstones are very, very old and they're kind of flaking off and chipping, and you don't want to damage them further. You don't want to press on them so hard you might knock them over. You don't want to use regular masking tape that when you pull it off it may damage the headstone. So always use soft materials and painter's tape. And now on to the cemetery. I spent a while trying out the different media and different papers and different gravestones, and it was hard to find the perfect gravestone where the decorations weren't carved in too deeply or too shallow. And the too shallow ones were usually the very old stones that had worn away and were covered with lichen. This was the first one I did, and this is newsprint. And using the gravestone rubbing crayon in the gold color. And I think the first one probably came out the best. So this was my very first one, and this was my very last one. But this was the exact image that I was looking for. I searched the cemetery for this picture of the skull carved into the headstone and couldn't find it on any of the other ones. Even though there were faces, none of them had the skull. I had given up, really, and had packed up all my materials into my bag and was headed back towards the truck went over by a tree, kind of tilted over at an angle, was this old headstone, and it was the only one I saw that had this skull. I may go back and look again, but this is the image that I was looking for. And the gravestone was so old that the rubbing is not very clear because the gravestone was very weathered. But it's a skull and then kind of like wings on the side. And this I made with the black Crayola crayon on this Japanese rice paper. I did it in newsprint with a purple Crayola crayon. And this is on newsprint with the gold gravestone rubbing crayon. This was another face I saw on a separate headstone. And you can see the in memory here. And this is the black Crayola crayon on the newsprint. I tried with the tracing paper, but the tracing paper ones didn't come out very clear. So I'm not going to use that. And the gravestones that had carvings, but it was more like a statuary. The carvings were so deep that the rubbings really didn't come out. But this was a really pretty one with some leaves and a flower, and it was on a baby's tombstone. But I couldn't get it to come out because it was kind of like trying to trace, trying to rub a statue. And here's some other ones. Again, these are all on the rice paper with crayon. This one had a little face. I did it in blue. This was a bigger face. This was just a nice design on the top of one of the gravestones. And that's the same design again, but with the silver gravestone rubbing crayon. And this was a large star, but it was hard to rub because the relief was very deep on it. And again, this was a very deep relief, but I like to spiral. And this was also from the same tombstone, but very deep. But it did manage to get the face, but not the wings so much. Just a couple more. I like the pattern along the side of the tombstone, and I got a couple rubbings of that. And this one is a pretty design. That's the same one. And this was a decoration along the side of the tomb, and this person died in 1767. I got another nice in memory of. This face didn't come out very well. And that one's a little better. This is the one with the charcoal, and the charcoal was just too soft. It came out too smushy. So I'm not going to use that charcoal anymore. So that's about it for my gravestone rubbings. And now I am going to select a couple of these to put in my Halloween junk journal. I just want to thank you for coming along today on this eerie journey. Happy junk journaling and happy Halloween. Bye-bye now.